Yo, what's goody? It's Derek. Make that make sense. We back in this thing for another one today, and I got a good topic for today. Something that's probably gonna be a little controversial. I want to know what you guys think. Let me know what your answer to this question is, or what your input might be to the conversation. Here on Make That Make Sense, we ask some questions and we go down the rabbit holes a little bit, and we discuss these things and find out where everybody kind of stands on it, and see if we can come to some common ground, see if we can think about things in a different way, maybe a little bit outside the box. That's kind of what we do here. So we shaping this thing up. I'm committed to it. Jumping on here, trying to do this once or twice a day, drop a video and just see what comes from it. So the question I have today is, in light of what we've been seeing over the last 2 weeks or so, the question I have is violence the answer? Is violence the answer to our issues and our problems in the United States of America? Now, on the surface, you might look at it and go, violence is never the answer. I think that's kind of how we're trained to answer that question, is like, violence is never the answer. But that kind of comes with a bunch of caveats, right? The advent of the United States was what? We look at the history of the Europeans coming over. They discovered land that was previously occupied, obviously. Maybe they were kind of surprised, too, that they landed here and found out there were people here. But it was occupied land, right? And so when they got here, did they buy the land? Well, no, they decided, well, this land is ours, right? And the people that were here seemed like they probably were more than willing to share some of it. Okay, you guys can have a colony here or there, you can share it. I don't think they realized that, in the near future, these individuals would be, raiding them and killing them and taking more of their land, and then eventually relegating them to reservations. Right? They didn't think that was going to happen. So I think they were generous people. And I think you find that throughout most of the world, people who are simple in the way that they live. Right? They don't need all these flashy things. They don't need all this luxury. They're not used to that. They're living off the land, or they're in touch with nature. They're in touch with, just their souls a little bit. They're in touch with their, with their creator or whatever they believe in. And it becomes enough for them. Sometimes survival and the daily, looking for food and sourcing water and sourcing these things, cleaning and all of that was most important to them. So they lived a very simple life. And when you have people that live a very simple life, they tend to be very giving. They tend to be happy people, smiling people. When you meet them, they want to meet new individuals, and they're happy and giving. So I think that's kind of the way that the Native Americans were when the Europeans landed here. And they've just figured, okay, these are some new people. They're a little bit different than us or whatever. We'll give them some space to do whatever and hang out. They had no idea what was going on in England or France or, all these other countries. They had no idea what was going on over there. They just knew that new people showed up here. We're going to treat them well. And eventually, it turned out to be a situation where there was violence. Now, we don't know who started it, where it started, but we do know that certain individuals came here and claimed things that were not theirs. And so obviously, there's a point in that interaction where there's people in the Native community that were like, wait a minute, this is not what we think this is supposed to be. This is not what their smiles told us this was going to be, right? So there was a point where it's like, okay, talking to them is not working. They don't have empathy for our situation. They don't have sympathy for our situation. They don't really care about our children and how maybe this land belongs to our children and our grandchildren and the generations after us. They don't care about that. And they're occupying more of our land and pushing us away from where we hunt for our food, where we get our water from. Why are they taking this stuff over? So at some point, it became a point where the violence was somewhat necessary. And it really only resulted out of not communicating, right? And not being willing to listen to the other side and find a common ground. Because there was still that colonization was still a part of the conversation, right? So, or a part of the thought process. So on one side, you have people saying, okay, this is our land. We allowed you to come here and hang out with us, and we just need you to be cool and not overrun us and not treat us bad or whatever. That's all we really need from you. And we just want to continue living our life the way that we live it. And there's no agenda outside of that. But then on the other side, you have, oh, I came over here and I didn't have anything in my country of origin, or the things that I did have, they took from us because of, religious reasons or political reasons or whatever. They took those things from us. Greed came into the play. And so now that I'm in this new land, I want back what I had before. Plus, I want freedom, and I want to dominate over anyone around me because I'm paranoid because I was being dominated where I came from. Right? So now the oppressed become the oppressor. We see that in several areas of the world today. The oppressed, even though they know what it feels like to be oppressed, they become the oppressor. And I think that's something that I think the U.S. is kind of like trying to actively prevent. Like the white male Christian nationalist movement, a lot of that comes from we were the oppressor and we feel like the people that were oppressed want to oppress us. And so we're going to like stamp that down. Like we're going to stomp that down into the ground because this is kind of our origin story. We don't want that because we know how that ends, and that doesn't end good. So I see what they're doing, or they have that fear, even though it's not really something that's been something that we've even fomented or even attempted, really, right? Black people could have been really, really, really vitriolic. We could have been hateful. We could have, strong-armed our way and taken so much from them, right? But we didn't. A lot of people stayed on the plantations that they were oppressed on. I don't think I could have did it. I don't think I would have stayed there anyway. Like I probably would have been dead. So it just wasn't gonna be no way. But they stayed there because they were willing to work with the people that oppressed them. They had love for these people. They raised their kids, right? A lot of the black women were nannies to the kids. And so it's like, I raised you from birth or whatever. I have a bond with you. I have some sort of love for you, even though you were the product of my oppressor. So black people could have been very vengeful after that much time, and after the beatings and the rapings and the lynchings and the murders and all that stuff. Not lynching because that came later, but we could have been very vengeful, but we haven't been. As a whole, we didn't go out attacking them. We didn't go burning their cities down. We didn't go bombing them out of their homes and making them run into the woods and leave. Sure, maybe a couple of times here and there were some things, a little bit of rioting or something came up when people got fed up. But generally, black people are the type of people, we just want to be left alone. Mind your business, and I'll mind my business. And that normally works. Somebody, I swear, we got to have somebody invent a mind your business pill. I mean, if we could prescribe that, we'd probably be all right. Whoever invent that gonna be rich. So, it's like, hey, you took your mind your business pills today? Because you over here in my business and you need to double your dose or something. So I'm just saying, like, we're not just a violent people. With the advent of the internet, we see a lot of violence. We actually get to see it on tape, and we're consuming that. And I think the kids are consuming that in a way that is not healthy. We saw this incident with Charlie Kirk on video, probably live for a lot of people. So it's not even like you were expecting it and you could really turn away from it. You might just inadvertently actually see it. And I saw a lot of comments about people seeing it. So it's not that we don't know violence exists. I think it's a good thing that it still kind of offends our consciousness a little bit. But with all of the incidents that have occurred with Charlie Kirk, and even since then, with the school shooting that occurred on the same day, we've got this incident, I believe, in Ohio, where this young individual shot at police. I think he might have shot a policeman or so. So so that occurred. We have this hanging incident at the Delta State University. The same time we had the homeless people that were shot. I think some of them died too, but I think must have been like 8 people shot. Like right after this Fox News host says that we should lethally inject them. He said this on national TV, and he still got a job. So that's why I'm asking this question about violence, right? Is it the answer? So we started a little bit on where America started, right? Moving in, these colonizers moving into the U.S., taking over the land, and then eventually being violent with the people that were here enough to subjugate them to reservations that you can go visit and see today. I lived in Mississippi for about a year or so, and where I lived was next to the Choctaw Reservation. And I know that we had some in New York and some other places too, but I had never really just seen it. And living there and like driving through it and working on the reservation, because I actually had a job over there that was based in the reservation, it really hit home to me like, wait a minute, this entire country belonged to these people, and we took it and put them in a really small area and said, okay, this is your area, we're taking the rest. Through violence, right? So we had all of that. Then we went through the slavery situation that they're trying to erase from the history now. They don't want anybody talking about it. They don't want anybody to know that this occurred, and they're whitewashing it and changing the books to say that, oh, it was like an arrangement between the slave and the slave owner, and it was beneficial to the slave to do, like, if it was beneficial, then why don't y'all just become slaves now? Like, if it's beneficial, let's make y'all the slaves and see how you like it for 400 years. Like, violence was the answer all through slavery, right? If you did something that they didn't like, what'd they do? They beat you. They whipped you, right? We got pictures of people with the scars from this, right? We know what the stories are that came from that. It wasn't that long ago. The United States is not that old. And this is the thing. People talk about it like it's ancient history, right? People tend to kind of talk about the U.S. like, oh, that was a long time ago. It's ancient history. The U.S. is only 250 years old. Like, basically, a couple of generations, really, right? So it ain't that old. So it ain't that long ago. There are people alive in the 1900s that were alive when slavery happened. In the 1900s wasn't that long ago. I was born in the 1900s. So there are people that were alive in the 1900s that were around when slavery was still alive and popping. So it wasn't that long ago. And so it's really interesting that they're trying to erase this and eradicate this, but we go to school and we study all of these things from thousands of years ago, right? Or 1,000 years ago, this happened, and this person was the king, and this is what happened, and his descendant was this and that. They love that. And they love to tell us stories. Like, we look at the Dark Ages and all that kind of stuff and everything that was going on. They want you to learn that history. You test on that history. But when it comes to our very own country's history, they don't want it to be out there because they recognize that they were oppressive, and they don't want the oppressed person coming back and clawing anything back from them and then oppressing them. They have this fear of that. So violence was the answer, right? Violence was the answer when it was the Indians or the Native Americans. Violence was the answer when it was black slaves. Violence was the answer during the civil rights movement when they killed the civil rights workers in Neshoba County, which was like right over from where I lived in Mississippi. It's always been the answer. That violence was the answer with Rosewood. Violence was the answer for Lake Lanier, that area. I forget what the town is that's under Lake Lanier, because that was a black township that they covered with water. In Philadelphia, when they dropped the bombs on that neighborhood in Philadelphia, violence was the answer. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, violence was the answer. Right? When it suits the government, when it suits individuals in power, violence is the answer. Violence was the answer in Venezuela a few weeks ago. 11 people shot and killed on a boat that's supposedly a drug boat. As long as you say drugs, then everybody goes, oh, okay, that's fine. But they don't think about, what if you're being lied to? Don't make sense to have that size of a boat and 11 people on it and they're running drugs. That doesn't make any sense. They're not going to take that amount of risk putting 11 people on there and minimize the amount of drugs that are on the boat. They're going to put as much of the, substance or whatever on the boat. They don't have room for 11 people. So I think those people are just migrants or people who are working, or they're doing something. They're transporting them from one place to another. They killed all those people, and people applauded that. They said that was great. Right? So there is a point where people feel like violence is the answer. In Israel, they're actively genociding people in Palestine. I get, this is our promised land and all that type of stuff from years ago or whatever. That's the argument they want to make. That's the argument that they want to make, but they're genociding people. And if you saw what happened to Charlie Kirk, if you saw that, think about what the children in Gaza are seeing on a daily basis. They're seeing that type of gore and worse on a daily basis. And on top of that, fearing for their own lives. We got to see it from our living rooms or on our phones at work or something. We got to see it from a distance. They're sitting up close seeing it. Imagine the trauma that inflicts on these children. And I guess they don't care because they feel like they actually want to just kill them. So maybe they don't grow up and have the trauma. But Israel has decided that violence is the answer. Now, I'm not going to get into who started it and all that kind of stuff, because that's been going on for years, right? But, there's people on the other side that are deemed to be terrorist groups and stuff like this. And violence is the answer for them, right? So what I'm getting at is violence the answer? It has been. It has been the answer, and that's why I think a lot of people in this government, in this administration, are afraid of the violence, because there's way more people in the nation than they can control. Yeah, you have the army and you can have police or whatever like that, but there's a certain level, like, you're going to have to cross a certain line if people, the general public, just descends into violence. So they have an active interest in saying, hey, violence is not the answer. This is crazy what you did to this guy. Yes, it is crazy. But if it's the government, and we've watched it happen, right? We just watched ICE agents shoot this man who drove off in his car, and then they lied about it, right? So they chose violence in that situation. They didn't say, okay, well, just let him go and we'll catch up to him. No, they emptied their weapons and they shot this dude, right? So, and they killed him. They took his life. So, on a state level, violence has been the answer. We're the only nation that dropped nuclear bombs, and we did it twice. And I'm surprised we didn't do it after 9/11. I really thought if it was going to happen, it was going to be then. Like, we're going to do this. Because we did it after Pearl Harbor, right? When they attacked the U.S. that way, you know, the U.S. sits in a place geographically where it's kind of hard to reach. So you really have to be intent on doing something to the U.S. And it takes a lot of logistics to do that. So we dropped a bomb on the Japanese twice. We chose violence. We didn't say, oh, you know, what you did to us was terrible, but we're going to be peaceful with you, and we're just asking you to be peaceful with us. No, we went there and inflicted the largest amount of violence that we could inflict as a nation. We do that everywhere. We did it in Afghanistan. We did it in Iraq. We're setting up to do it in Venezuela. So the same people who are saying that violence is not the answer because it was their guy who was on the wrong end of it, those same people sanction violence in other cases, in other instances, when it's something they don't have an interest in, or the interest that they have is for it to fit the narrative, and they want to be tough guys, and you know, this whole administration is all the tough guy stuff or whatever. And I'm looking at him like, most of y'all are out of shape, and you can't. This dude Hexef or whatever, he can't even do pull-ups. Come on, man. I'm out of shape too. I'm not out here saying like I'm doing it like that. You know, they're walking around with this tough guy bravado and their chest popped out or whatever like that because of the way it looks. And because when you do that, there's that, you know, it's like a bully. Is that threat of violence makes people move out the way and do what you want them to do so that they don't risk the confrontation. But sometimes you got to punch the bully in the face, because that's the only way you're going to get them up off you. There's in every neighborhood, I'm sure that's kind of happened. When you have that bully or whatever, they be around for a while. But then there's that one time somebody decided they're not going to take it no more, and it goes down. And it calms that person down, right? So I think that's what I see in America right now is like we're in the situation where we need that person that can calm the situation down. But when you have a bully, that means you gotta punch them in the face. So is violence the answer or is it not? Because if you don't punch them in the face, the violence on their side just gets worse. It's getting bad. You know, it's really getting bad when people are shooting at police officers and the gun violence is out of control. You're shooting up schools, you're shooting up churches. They don't even respect the church. Come on, man. And then you have the administration going, okay, these 1,600 people tried to overthrow a democratic election with violence. People died. And they were like, oh, you didn't do anything. So violence was the answer when it was to help, you know, to try to help overthrow a democratically held election. To stop the certification of an election in the United States of America. There are that many people were willing to get out there and put their whole life and career and legacy on the line for that. In a violent way. They came with the zip ties and they were beating people with American flags and stuff like this, breaking windows, climbing walls, and, doing all types of crazy stuff. Had our lawmakers cowering behind doors, fighting police, fighting our Capitol Police, fighting them physically. We saw it. We watched it on video. And it not only influenced it was influenced outside of the U.S. because here in Brazil, we almost had the exact same thing at one of the buildings in the capital of Brazil. So 2 years after it happened in the U.S., it happened here. And I was like, wow, Brazil kind of mirrors the U.S., in that way. So just politically, it's just been mirroring what the U.S. does. And so they saw it as a viable opportunity to try to, change the election. Here, they saw that based on what they saw in the United States. And the president said, you didn't do nothing. You didn't do anything at all. You're going to be free. Let me just make you all free. So there's no value in the Constitution anymore. There's no value for the rule of law anymore. And violence is the answer when it furthers your political ideology, your political narrative. It becomes the answer. And that, in turn, makes violence the answer for the other side, because if you don't meet the level of violence, you're going to be subjugated, you're going to be oppressed, you're going to be put under the thumb of these people. So that's something really to think about. We have the Second Amendment for a reason. It's supposedly so if our government gets out of hand, they're taking away our freedoms, they're doing too much, we're supposed to have the Second Amendment so we could take up arms against that, right? But I think we're kind of fortunate that we don't really believe that. We don't really believe on it, or we've never really been put in a position where we had to act on that. There's some countries right now where they're going through it and they're ousting their leaders, burning their house down and all that kind of stuff. Was violence the answer? Maybe, because they're being met with violence. They had enough. Even a dog will bite you if you hit it hard. The nicest dog will bite you if you continue to mess with it and you're rude to them or you're mean to them. The littlest, nicest dog is going to bite you. So, but you would have to push it to that point. And I think that's what the U.S. is experiencing right now, where the right is pushing and they're pushing and they're pushing and they're putting so much fuel on the fire with lying all the time, not telling the truth, getting people fired from their job. You're making people unemployed, and telling people that your history is not important. Your history should not be taught. Your history is divisive, when it's our history, really. Trying to erase us from the conversation, trying to erase us from, if they really could just put us in camps, they would, and get rid of us. They just would get rid of all of them. They've said it. There's a lot of them that we've seen on video and stuff just saying, like, they feel like everyone on the left they should just get rid of. So they're just really waiting for the opportunity to do that. And I think Charlie Kirk's situation was one of those things that they felt like, oh, we finally got our catalyst where we can be violent. And we can be violent towards these people. So they believe violence is the answer. That's why they were threatening HBCUs with bomb threats. They believe that to be true. They believe violence is the answer. So they're telling you out of one side of their mouth that, oh, you can't murder someone for their opinions or for their words or, or however they disparage you. You can't murder someone for that. And they can get you to agree on that, right? But then they turn around as a response to that happening and go, okay, well, we've got to murder innocent people. We've got to threaten to murder innocent people. and it just hasn't happened yet. They didn't go through with it because then they kind of found out like, oh, this is one of our guys who did it to us. Now we don't really have the reason that we thought we were going to have. And so they kind of went the other way. But the first idea was, let's go kill people. Let's hurt those people. Instead of saying, maybe we should ratchet this back. It's really hard to bring that back when you start having ego get involved. People that are not really together mentally, they're probably struggling financially. They've got a lot of stresses. They might have gone through things, divorces or whatever that kind of ruined the little that they did have. They might have, been through sickness or something in their family or whatever, or lost loved ones or something, and they've already were bent towards, not liking maybe someone on the left. And now they're getting hit with this rhetoric every single day. The left is your problem. This is why you feel bad when you wake up. This is why when you go to the store you can't afford your groceries. This is why you need to buy medication and you're deciding between the medication and your food. This is getting, drilled into their head every single day. And then it's like, oh, it's because Biden said this or Biden did that, or it's because Obama had done this and Obama did that. And then it's Hillary Clinton, they did that. And then it's Hunter Biden and Hunter Biden did that. And they just keep going. They just have all of these things to kind of like keep you in that hamster wheel. And some people can get out of it. Some people kind of wake up and get out of it. But then other people, they just keep going down that road, and to the point where they're sending bomb threats to HBCUs. For people that don't care nothing about them, wouldn't look at them. Unless they need a vote. unless it's election time or something like that, then they'll talk to you then. That's the only time. But after they got your vote, you think this man cares about these farmers and these people that he's ruining their farms? He don't care about those people. And there are people that are like, oh, the president came down here and he talked to us or whatever. Yeah, that was before the election. But now you haven't seen him since. You're not getting invited to the $200 million ballroom for any of the parties. You can't go unless you got money. So the enemy is not who you think it is. You're being manipulated. You're being manipulated into carrying out the violent threats of someone who doesn't care about you. And they believe that violence is the answer, because the more violence that occurs, the more they can say, oh, the left deserved that, or the left is fomenting this violence and we had to do it because they're fomenting violence, right? We just had to do it. And so it's just going to keep snowballing. But they were calling for civil war. When I left the United States, I was like, that's something I could see happening. I was like, something's wrong, because you can only push people so far. You can only kill so many people before people go, I don't think this is good. I think you're trying to kill me, so I got to kill you first. There's only so much you can do to people to keep them from that mindset. At some point, the wheel's going to start turning like, wait a minute, I'm being hunted. So I got to figure out what to do. And as humans, we're not like a rabbit or something like that who doesn't have a lot of tools outside of its speed and ability to like jump in a hole that might save us. We're not like that. We have options. We can go to the gun store like they can. We can go to the fair and buy guns and things just like they can, at least for right now, right? We have the right to do that the same way. So now it becomes dangerous because now both sides are armed. Both sides are looking at death as the ultimate way to get to where you're trying to go. And it's very difficult reasoning with someone who's hell-bent on death being the ultimate place to go. It's very difficult to reason with somebody like that who's hell-bent on violence. It's very difficult. And I think that we as a society have reached a point where you've got to go to the nth degree. You've got to go to the place where someone dies in order to get your point across. They're skipping all the other stuff. I remember growing up or whatever, I saw fights, lots of fights and things like that, and there was always some little conflict between this one and that one or whatever, and then they'd get a bunch of people and they'd come and meet you after school and then they fight or whatever like that. It's like we're skipping all of the conversation. We're skipping all of the days of having issues with a person or whatever, or maybe actually having a fight or two with a person. We're skipping past all of that and going directly to murder at this point, because it's just so available. The guns are available, and you don't have to be close up to a person. You can do it from far away, or running from them. You can do this from far away. So it just has become part of the degradation of our culture as the citizens of the United States. We jump to the end. And that's not the place where we want to be, but that's what we've been taught. That's the way the United States was born. It was born in gun violence. That's how they got the Native Americans to be on reservations, with gun violence. So violence was the answer at that point in time to achieve their objective. That's how they got slaves. They didn't really shoot the slaves necessarily. They use violence to get the slaves in line, to keep them in line, and to send a message to the other slaves like, hey, you can't do this or you can't do that, and you're under my thumb. And then civil rights and everything else in between, the lynchings in the Ku Klux Klan and these groups that were hate groups that were using terror to keep people subjugated or to keep them in line in a certain way. And we're just dealing with the remnants of that today. But now it's like, okay, a lot more people have some freedoms, and they have access to the same things you had access to. It was great when they had access to it and no one else did. But now what are they talking about? Immigrants. Oh, the immigrants come here and they're the worst of the worst, and they're the murderers, and they're the rapists, and they come with this vitriol, and 99.9% of them are not any of those things. But it's in their mind. It's in the brain, because they're worried that being from the descendants of oppressors, that the people they oppressed are going to come back. And that's why they don't want you thinking about it. They don't want you thinking about your history. Right? And then immigrants, a lot of them coming from black and brown countries, they're seeing like, oh, there's numbers that might be added to this. Like we're all black and brown are all the same. Oh, that's just, we're all the same group or something. I don't know. It's like they can see the numbers growing, and they don't want that, because it's like, oh, we've created a division of white and black. And now we see those numbers on the other side of minorities growing, and they might be getting help from other minorities. So we got to stop that. And that's why they have the rhetoric that they have. And that's why they're fomenting the violence that they're fomenting. They're breaking people's car windows and tearing kids from their families. I saw something the other day where they took the mother and father or whatever and left the kids on the side of the road in a car. Just left them there. Crazy. So what do you think? Do you think that violence is the answer? Violence is never the answer. Can you understand where I'm coming from with my ideas on this? I'm just kind of talking through it. We're not coming to any conclusion here maybe today, but it's just what goes through my mind. All right. So I'm trying to make it make sense the way you're trying to make it make sense. So make that make sense. It's your boy Derek. We'll holler at you soon. Peace. the sky, rise high, living comfortably. Cause somebody gotta live and report what they see. In the land of milk and honey, man, you wanna be the bear, but you gotta ignore the fear and Goldilocks stare. Walk with a big stick, pretend you care. And when they see you coming, niggas running everywhere. I think the angel of the earth, cause it's dangerous beat. One day we gon' learn that freedom is not free. Don't waste your time, one day you gon' see. The fruit can't grow without the roots of the tree. Starve him for truth. And light to no good, but it's literal. You could die without food. Music sound whack, perform the crowd boo. Promoter shook his head like goddamn dude. You only had one job and you messed it up. You would've got paid, should've blessed it up. Now get out my face before I rock it fitted. This is World War III, everybody can get it. Yeah.
Imagine what it's like when they burn the sun, when they blocking out the light and the darkness come. Never seen the sunset, it'll take your breath. I'ma drop these bombs and there's nothing left. Better stay out my way, cause I don't play. And I'm very unsure how I feel today. Y'all smile like a lamb and I roar like a lion. Launching these missiles in the hole like Zion.
My tongue is too sharp, but the pen got the powers. Gentlemen bucking with the switch from the towers. 7 foot tall, niggas prone to brawl. When you up that thing, they ain't with it at all. Man, he serving knockoffs, it ain't really official. The logo is the same, but the product artificial. On free and the system wanna enslave me. Take everything I own and give it back to me. Trickle down now, I need a whole enchilada. I got a right to resist, pump your fist in the fire. I'm prone to conflict, that's why I came. Steph is dope, need to change your name to Steph is a whole, cause Steph is lame. Artillery ready, we is not the same. I could probably drone on, tear you out the frame. Man, listen, it's always fake shit that be shiny and glistening.
Can't imagine what it's like